Oh, so close to the shop, and guess what? Come on, exactly what they said. Oh, nothing. Intermittent start. That's a problem. I'm gonna have to push this thing in today. Where's Brian when you need him? It looks like the mail delivery is gonna be late here at Chipola College today. Let's get this thing into Tech Garage. Hey guys, you wanna give me a hand? You guys join us as well. As soon as we get this thing in, we're gonna diagnose it and fix it. Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, we got a no delivery situation. Well, it's really a no start. And we popped the hood. Look inside there. You can't see anything. So the best plan of action here is to go inside the van. We went ahead and did that. We took off the doghouse. The console's right there. You can see the wear and tear on it as well. The grill, I mean, this thing has some miles on it. You know, high mileage vehicle delivering mail here at Chipola College. Most people want to trash it. But you know, this is Tech Garage, and we got Brian Gregory inside. I got no worries. So let's check in with him and let's get this thing back on the road.
Well, of course, Giant John's not crawling up here in this small space, especially in a van that has no shag carpet in it. You know what, with the dog box off, access is pretty easy. It's a Chevy 350, the distributor's at the back. Now, proper diagnostic procedure. When you've got a no-start condition, you want to check ignition first, fuel second. So out under the hood, I verified we're not throwing any spark. Next natural stop along the way, distributor, cap, and rotor. No fancy tools required once that box is off. I've got a Torx wrench and a magnet. You want a magnet for this job because these little screws that hold the cap down and the rotor in, you don't want to drop them down into the engine bay. More about that in a second. Another free tip for you, a best practice is to label your wires. This van has 150,000 miles on it. It's a prime candidate for a full ignition tune-up, and so we'll end up doing plugs and wires and the whole deal and do it really right. But even though there's looms and the wires only go one way, I like to label each wire, not with numbers, but with letters, so you don't cross it up and think that's a firing order reference. You'll do that times all 8, so you replace them one by one and get them right as you go back in. So there's 2 screws that hold the cap on. I'm going to loosen this front one. I'll move to the back one. I'll label my wires. I'll get this guy off, take it to the bench and get a good examination, do a little forensics over there. Meanwhile, John, how does an ignition system really work?
Well, Brian had mentioned it's a high-mile vehicle. Well, RockAuto.com thought of everything. We got a whole set from them right here. You can see the cap, you got the rotor, you got the spark plug wires built into one set. Smart move, Brian. What'd you find?
Absolutely. Well, we've got some evidence. So if we take a look at our interior post here in the old distributor cap that we took out,
wow,
we definitely have some degradation.
Yeah, tip it up. Look at the size of that, man. Look at that.
You could call that electrolysis, you could call it chalking, you know what I call it? Resistance.
Yep, exactly.
We're definitely not throwing spark.
That thing got all over my finger. I mean, just, that's the deal. And then throw the rotor in the mix. If you see the top of the rotor, if you can pan in on that, man, that right there, look at that, all burnt up. That just keeps happening and happening and happening. Eventually, that's what it was. It was an intermittent start to a no start. So now we're not throwing any spark at all.
Yeah, terribly, terribly inefficient. So I'm going to grab all of our new parts from RockAuto.com, get this stuff reinstalled.
Yeah, one other tip you're in there, nice, is you can take the top of the distributor, wiggle it back and forth. These things are real noticeable when you start seeing these old cars. They start to flop back and forth, and it throws the spark unequally, and you might get a misfire.
Absolutely. All right, I'll check that, make sure we're good. I'm going to get this back on the road.
Yep, you get to work. Now, let's take a look at this graphic right here. Now, the graphic actually shows what an ignition system is. The top portion of it's all our secondary. Those are those big fat wires throwing the spark. Below it is all our primary wires. That's the little wires feeding the low voltage. So the low voltage is going to get stepped up by a coil, bam, making high voltage. Well, I have it right here on the board. You can see what's going on here. It's almost the same distributor system. And if I pull off the cap right here, I can show you. Here's the cap Brian dealing with, and there's the rotor. Well, what happened, this goes down in the motor. Oil pump's driving all the way up through the camshaft, and it's driving the rotor. It's spinning around. Well, if I put it on, it actually starts distributing that spark around. Now our van was a no start. Brian said he did a spark test. Well, that's real easy. You can get a little spark tester like this right here and clip it on, and this is how he determined if he had spark or no spark. So if I clip it on there, and I set it right there, now if I fire this up, this should have enough power, and it does, to jump that entire gap. Well, Brian had no spark there. So obviously with that much mileage, you might as well go ahead and start doing the ignition system. Now we step over to a waste spark. That's the next evolution. Our waste spark's right here. You actually have some coils and you have some spark plugs, but I'll fire it up for you and you see it in action. This one has a crank position sensor that's actually a tone wheel. It's magnetically picking up a signal and up it comes to the module. Now the module opens and closes and tells the coils when to fire. You can see them firing up there. Now pretty cool. The module's located right down here, so I can actually take it, tip it up, I can show you. I'll pull the coil off. So these coils are actually replaceable. It plugs right into the module's underneath, the coil's up on the top here. Once you plug it in there, well, our board's a 4-cylinder, it's got 2. A 6-cylinder would have 3, and a V8 would have 4. Waste spark principle. From there, we went to coil on plug. That's this one right here. Evolution, we're going in, we got the coil, we got the package, we got the spark plug going all the way through there, right here to the end, making the fire. One small package. So that's the evolution of ignition systems. We're gonna have to go to commercial, but you know, I have to wake up Bryan. He talked about my shag carpet. He's still probably in there listening to his 8-track of ABBA. We'll be back with more Tech Garage, brought to you by rockauto.com.
Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com, is brought to you by Magic Creeper, the most versatile creeper ever. Custom Auto Sound, the originator of classic car OEM fit radio since 1977. And by rockauto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Bryan, turn the music down. I can't take any more dancing, Queen. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com. Now, we want to see what happens if we don't have the spark, and Bryan found it on the cap, but you know what? Maybe you have to go further. So Tech Garage fashion, we're going to take you through it right here. This one here is a distributor, just like our van, but there's an AC pickup. Well, there's a couple of styles of that. This one right here is a Hall effect switch. You can see it located right here. This is a Hall effect. This is pretty cool. This cuts a signal on and off, a 12-volt signal, and I can spin it right there. And you can see that shutter wheel go in and out, in and out. That's cutting that signal, that's turning that coil, pulse or not pulse. Why? Well, we got to have the spark at the right time. Now what we have on ours here is we have an AC pickup. That's located right here. You can see the pickup located right there, and then here's the little teeth that go around. As that goes around, that sends an AC signal, different than the Hall effect. The AC signal spins around, and as it spins around, it's actually going to make an AC signal, send it to an ignition module, and an ignition module is going to convert it to DC. Well, better yet, I'll show it to you in action. This is really cool. You don't want to do this at home. I went ahead and just pierced these wires here so you could see it. But this is where the AC module is located, the pickup, and then it goes down to the ignition and it comes out DC. But watch the meter right there so you can tell if your pickup's working. I'm going to fire this thing up and we should get a reading. All right, so you see that, that's pulsing, AC voltage, positive, negative, we're good to go. Now, if it got out of the module and it's going over to a coil, here's another test you can make. Just find a test light, a Noid light, something. That coil should be pulsing on and off. I have it grounded over here and I have a test light. So if I come over here and I touch that coil, that's great. But what's supposed to happen is when that goes through that signal, it's going to pulse that test light so we know we're actually getting a pulse to fire that coil. Man, so you're getting a pulse. So you would just work your way. That's strategy-based diagnosis. That's what we always teach on Tech Garage. Step by step by step. Where did it fail? Where did the signal stop? That's the component that's not working. It's pretty simple. I mean, it's complex here, but you know, Bryan's on there working pretty hard. He's at wide open throttle. Let's check in with him.
All right, second mounting screw on the new rotor. Again, don't over tighten. You don't want to break any of this. Plastic's a little bit brittle. It's secure. We got our new cap. Looks good. Little tip. Keep your fingers on those mounting screws as you go down on here. It only installs one way. You'll feel it lock into the base plate. There's where we want to be. Now get this guy secured. We'll reconnect our plugs, and then we're going to check our repair and validate it and make sure that in fact was the problem. You see the new wires and the new plugs, that ultimately will finish this job off because it's a high mileage van. It gets a lot of low speed, around campus kind of wear and tear. Good candidate for a full ignition repair. Again, don't over tighten. You can break these tabs on the new cap. You don't want that. We get it good and snug. It's clearly locked in. Let me reconnect, following the loom, one-to-one on all the wires. Not going to totally seat them because we're throwing plenty of spark there. Get the right ones here. Oh, there we go. We want to just simply validate the repair. Get your coil wire on. Follow these guys up and through. Get them seated down here. Make sure we are in order. One more visual check. Everything's snug. Let's validate this repair before we move on. Running like a top. For John, we just need the disco ball, some shaggy rug in the back, and we'll be good to go. So let me get the wires going. Let me get our new Iridium plugs in from AC Delco. She's going to be running like a top. I tell you what, we're digging even deeper into engines coming up next in the LS lesson. Can't wait to get there. Hey, stay with us on Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented to you by RockAuto.com. We got our camshaft here, and we need to do a little visual inspection before we really start getting into mics. All right, so you're rolling it around here. This is a nice little rack to hold it. Rolling it around, you're looking for obvious flat spots on cam lobes. Nothing super visual here. You want to go through methodically, one by one. May need a flashlight. We're lucky we have all these lights around. We can get a good look at it. You can also see some tracking where there's some bearing wear there on the mains. Not terrible, but I tell you what, it's bad enough that we need to go through, get a full-blown digital inspection of every lobe to see what kind of condition the camshaft's in. One thing I can tell you, John, we're going to rebuild those heads.
Yeah, that's for sure. Now these heads, take a look at it. We got them off sitting right on the table. First couple of moves, just make sure you clean the surface. Get your wire brush or a wheel or whatever you want to do it with. Clean inside the combustion chamber. Really all you're doing is you just want a good visual inspection so you're not wasting time. Perhaps it's cracked right here and it's so obvious you're going to have to get ahead. You don't have to go through this whole process. But other than that, that's the first step. You got it good and clean, Brian. We can head to the
Absolutely. Now we want to check for level here.
Yep, check for level, straight edge across, get the specification. Well, where are you going to get the specification? If you pull up this graphic, everything's there. You can go to service menu, get a little Haynes menu, go to rockauto.com, get the book. You'll have every single one right there, okay? So I come down here, I'm just checking. I'm checking in all different places, across, this way, this way, this way. No matter how you put it, you don't want the maximum to go under there. Once again, we haven't did anything. It's warped, forget it, get a new head. If it's not like ours, we can proceed on, all right? So now what we're gonna do is I actually pulled a valve out. We're gonna keep them organized real nice, but I'm gonna show you how they do it. Actually come here with a valve compressor right here, and this is pretty cool. I'm going to try to do this live, Brian, so watch your eyes.
You got it, baby. Looks good.
Come down here. I'm going to hit this. I like to go ahead and tap the valves first just to make sure there's no varnish buildup on them, kind of free up any of that. So my valve spring compressor on the head right there, I got it on the valve.
Yep.
I'll push it down, and when I push it down, I could take a little magnet, Brian's favorite tool in the shop. Work smart. Yep, 1 and 2. Look at that.
Well done, like a surgeon.
So then what we can do is release the pressure, and what's going to happen is, in order, Brian, there's a valve spring for you.
Very nice.
Now what I can do is I can go ahead and just file it. Take a little bit of that top off right there. Just come around, spin it around, take that off so you're not ruining your seat, and then voila, there's your valve.
Well done. Now, there's even more to inspect here. We're going to go slow so that ultimately we can go fast with our LS engine. On the valve itself, lots of inspections got to be done. John's going to show you more about that in a second. But I want to show you how to inspect these valve springs. Believe it or not, these guys can get out of round, they can get out of true, they can get heat cycled. You're looking for, just get yourself a level, a good surface like this. Look for level and true and plumb all the way up that valve spring. I like to roll it around, check at a few random spots. Same thing on the other one. The next thing you can do is check for level across the top of them. Again, you're looking for plumb. Now, you want to get crazy about it, throw a level on there, you'll see the bubble. I'll tell you what, these actually look pretty good. The final step would be a load test. You probably don't have a fancy tool like this at home, but there are specs here. If you want to load test every single one of your valve springs, you'll have a really good idea of what condition you're putting that head back in.
Exactly. And your valves, once again, another specification. You can come here and you can just set your thing up as a no-go gauge. Just come here, check it, check it, check it. Check your little inside, check your clearances. Just make sure all of your things in spec so your car will run great. Well, it's time to head to Garage Ed, man.
Love it.
We're learning here, we're learning there.
Love
we're learning everywhere. We'll see you right after break with more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com.
Tech Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Clamp Tight, the clamp making tool. Steel Rubber Products, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, one of our favorite segments, Garage Ed, and today it's all about the MAP sensor, Manifold Absolute Pressure Sensor. Now, in a prior episode, we looked at the mass airflow sensor, and that's a precise reading. That's pretty cool. That actually took the air and it calculated everything going in. It looked at the load, everything, precise reading. Now, on some vehicles, you may have what's called a MAP sensor. This is speed density. Now, the MAP sensor is hooked to an intake manifold source, and it knows what's going on at the vacuum in the engine or lack of vacuum, and then it takes the intake air temperature sensor right here and it makes an educated guess. So my MAP sensor's up top, my intake air temperature sensor's right there. Now between those two, it does a calculated load. Well, how does it work? Take a look at this graphic right here. You actually have a MAP sensor, which is a mechanical connected to vacuum, and then you have an electrical portion. You can see the 5-volt reference coming down to it. The computer's sending that. You have it grounded, and then that return signal goes back to the computer. That's important, and Bryan will show us actually what's going on with that joker. What's going on, though, is vacuum is applied to that Wheatstone bridge or that silicone, pulling it up, changing that value. Now, true Tech Garage fashion, we're going to show it to you in action. So I can go ahead and fire this thing up, and when I fire it up, you want to know and see what the computer's seeing? Well, it's right over there on the board. On the left side, you got the manifold absolute pressure, and down below you got the throttle position because it's related. And then I said it was an educated guess. Well, over there on the right, it's calculated value. Well, watch what's happening. Right now I have massive vacuum because the throttle's closed. I start opening the throttle, the vacuum goes away. Now when the vacuum goes away, you can see it on the mass airflow sensor, and you can see it relative to the actual throttle position sensor. And then over on the right, there's our calculated load. So now that you know how the computer works, we got our resident DIY expert over there. He's going to show you how to test it.
The Manifold Absolute Pressure Sensor has a really big job, but you know what? Even the best of sensors is only as good as the entire vacuum system. You can't have any breaks, any unmetered air getting into that system any which way. And that's important when you're doing small jobs like changing serpentine belts or radiator hoses or any upgrades you do over the life of the vehicle. Check those vacuum lines every single time and make sure you've got no cracks, no chafing, no stray vacuum. That's critical for this whole thing to balance. So in this case, we've got the MAP sensor removed right out of the top of the intake manifold right here. That's the hole where the stud goes down in. This is the stud. We've temporarily got our RockAuto.com vacuum pump connected to it so we can show you what's going to happen. Now, not a very fancy check at all. A couple T-pins, go online. You can find this connector where you've got ground and return. We've got those T-pinned, black connectors ground. Now with the multimeter set on 12 volts, I connect to the return, and we will see a static reading of 0.15. So now, engine starts. There's vacuum. We're measuring in mercury. We pump up our vacuum. There's your voltage change. Now, that may fluctuate with engine load, but you can see not only is the sensor working properly, the wiring harness back to the ECU is also working properly. So in this case, we're good to go. Release the vacuum, shut it down, we're back down to a low reading. So we're in good shape, really important check, easy to do. It's all about the vacuum lines not having any leaks. All right, with that, Tom and John have some more really cool stuff.
Here at Tech Garage, we pride ourselves with having the right tool for the job. And I have the Rock Auto mobile website right here on my phone. Why do I do that? Well, look, at one click of the button, I have all the different things I can click. Find the tool, not only the tool, parts, times money, order it, bam, here it is right at the door. Easy way to do it, Tom, love it.
Yeah, professional mechanics get the right tools, but do-it-yourselfers can do it too. It makes the job more fun, more enjoyable. We have a Tools Universal Parts tab. You just click there, and it's organized like the rest of the catalog: brakes and fuel, air. Some of these parts, like the vacuum pump, you use that to bleed brakes. You use it to advance the diaphragm on your distributor. You'll use it over and over again. And it just makes the job so much faster. Get a spindle nut socket to take the spindle nut off versus trying to use vice grips and skinning your knuckles and getting frustrated.
Saves a lot of time, and what really stuck out to me was the professional quality of the tools. I mean, this is a Noid light set, you know, you would think you'd get a GM. It's the same ones they use, almost like a Kent Moore number. You know, the scan tools, everything's there. You got so much.
Yep, that's a great resource.
It absolutely is. Well, check them out on the web. Meanwhile, we're going to wrap up today over there with Bryan.
There we go, all buttoned up. Folks, we've had a blast today doing a basic ignition repair. We did that job really right on the Chipola College mail van. And John, we had a blast working on those LS heads.
Yeah, you know, precision was everything. All those measurements we make, it makes a big difference, man. Those fine details.
It's everything. Precision and balance all the time. We saw that on the map sensor repair as well.
Oh, Garage Ed, we're building sensor by sensor by sensor. I mean, you know, look at what we're doing. Balance, balance, balance. Well, the mail will be late no more, but speaking of late, we're out of time for today. You know what else we love? We love you watching and checking into social media, so check us out there. We'll be back next week with more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com.
Production assistance for Tech Garage is provided by Chipola College, located in Marianna, Florida. Founded in 1947, Chipola was ranked recently as one of the top 3 community colleges in the United States.